And speaking of the Senate, now Senator Bob Corker says, well, he's developed a new empathy for President Trump's fight against fake news. This after reports of a Cornhusker type kickback, this time called the Corker kickback, circulated, which claimed that the Tennessee Republican actually reversed his stance on this tax bill in exchange for benefits that would actually help him personally. Now, Corker says he can now relate to President Trump, and he understands what the president has been dealing with. Joining me now to discuss, Harmeet Dillon, Republican strategist and trial lawyer, back with us as well, Beverly Hallberg, president of the District Media Group. Harmeet, let me go to you on this, because it's interesting. Yesterday, the ceremony we saw at the White House after the tax bill was passed, and many of President Trump's more harsh Republican allies were the ones who seemed to embrace him the most. And you almost felt as if, not necessarily an epiphany, but they are starting to understand that his route to the White House, and since he's been in the White House, has been paved with a kind of barbed tax that no other president may have seen.
That's right, Charles. Thank you for having me. You know, what we've seen in the United States Senate is it's the most exclusive club in the world. It is very clubby, and people get along across the aisle. And then along comes Donald Trump, who we can all see does not play by the Marquis of Queensberry rules of debate. And he's bare-knuckled and gives as good as he gets. And some might say that Senator Corker may have kind of started it. I mean, certainly he's been critical of the president on foreign policy issues, and as head of the Foreign Relations Committee, he's certainly played a significant role there. But all of these senators have seen the incredible and despicable false news that has been put out by the media against this a very important tax bill, which is a centerpiece of the president's agenda. And I think they all also see that if they did not fulfill their promises to the voters that they've been doing for the last many years to accomplish some tax relief for the American voters, they were going to pay a price at the polls. And so I'm glad that Senator Corker actually honored his promises and did what was right for the country. And he's suffering the same consequences as all of them are.
And it's more interesting in a sense because Corker doesn't have to worry about what happens at the polls next time, right? So this is more of a genuine epiphany or saying, hey, you know, I realize the pressure, and it's not, Beverly, just the fake news associated with the tax bill before and since it's been passed for 24 hours, but the spate of negative news that had to be retracted, one story after another, in an eagerness to take down President Trump. Just basic journalism 101, take a pause, check your sources. Those things have been thrown out the window in this eagerness to get out there and to harm the president.
Yeah, and I wonder now if we could call Corker and Trump frenemies, because they did have definitely a battle a couple of months ago. But I want to even take a different spin on this when it comes to Senator Corker. One of the things I've wondered with this all, and I believe him when he says that this is an unfair story, if we know all the details, if he is accurate in what he's saying, this is fake news, if you want to call it that. But I wonder if this is maybe him testing the waters for another election. I know he said he's not going to run again, but maybe with this legislative victory, maybe him attaching himself to Trump, it makes me wonder if he's rethinking his whole campaign. But I will say it's got him a lot of publicity, because one thing Democrats did well, or even the press did well with this, was call it the Corker kickback. Sure. Anything that's catchy in name is going to catch some media news. So it's given him a lot of face time on a very positive Republican story.
Real quick, Harmeet. President Trump and this newfound relationship with his fellow Republicans, how do you think this works out in the midterm elections next year?
Well, I think what is really going to be critical in the midterm elections is not so much his relationship with those senators and members of Congress, but whether the American people start to see the effects of these new revenue in their paychecks. That's going to happen as soon as February. And if it is as the president promised and as the members of Congress and Senate have promised the people, I think you're going to see a very positive return at the polls. If it isn't and they overpromise, then we're going to see some penalties paid at the polls.
All righty, ladies, thank you both very much. And once again, I want to let you know, if you're just joining us, the Senate right now debating that interim government spending bill. Remember, it was just passed by the House right before we went to air. Fox News reporting that the Senate is expected to vote on the spending bill within the next 40 minutes, and Fox News will bring you that vote live as it happens. Meanwhile, corporate America is already liking this newly passed tax reform bill. But is it because they're the largest beneficiaries? Because that's what the critics say, although there's a whole lot of people out there $1,000 richer today. We'll explain it all when we come back.